My channel is sponsored by Ronin Cards, a fine store for fine cards that you can use to support me. Just use the link in the description and code SHERIFF for 5% off your order to help support me and my channel. Just recently, they've opened pre-orders for playsets from DZ4, so if you're looking for Barrow Magnus or any of the other Destined ones, now's your chance. And this video specifically is sponsored by MyMetalCards. Stay tuned to hear about their sick products and how you can win some in a giveaway. We'll talk about it at this time. Vanguard is a game that's changed a lot over the years, and since some changes have definitely been better than others, everyone can't help but look at Standard with high anticipation for what it'll do next, especially with its new mechanic, Energy. To start though, let's go back to the basics. The core resources of Vanguard are Damage and Soul, used for counterblasting and soul blasting. Counterblasting involves turning a face-up damage face down, making each damage a one-time use resource that you can only get by taking a hit and inching closer to losing. Immediately, this is an amazing gameplay mechanic. It works perfectly with and accentuates the game's focus on the battle phase, as if you want to use your best skills, take a hit and then put your money where your mouth is. This makes it so getting put closer to losing still gives you an incentive to not block an attack, and also means your opponent can damage deny you to limit your own effects. And considering the variety put into each deck, each of them relying on counterblasting in different amounts shakes up the game by forcing you to attack in ways your deck isn't always used to, depending on the matchup. Soul, on the other hand, is basically a free resource. You get it every time you ride, with the previous Vanguard becoming part of the Soul. A free resource is always nice, something Magic could learn a lot about, since it's a resource you build up and can always rely on having. Vanguard also using Soul as some decks' main gimmick is really cool, especially since they take a core part of the base game and make it so much more interesting and engaging, both as a gameplay piece and an identity or strategy for the deck, often making the vibe of it the best part in some decks. This way of taking core gameplay mechanics and making it so much more to some decks is part of Vanguard's ingenuity that keeps me sticking around for a long time. But again, every era of Vanguard has had innovations and direction beyond what most card games can do. Even V-Series brought imaginary gifts which were, on release, great tools for the long game both in its own format and in premium, further setting the standard of rewriting Vanguards as a design strategy. Now we have Persona Rise, probably the strongest ability in the game considering its low cost that immediately refunds itself and the amount of extra pressure it allows. And now we have Energy. It's similar to the funny motorcycle mechanic from 5Ds, where you get points at the start of your turn and costs will require you to spend them. Basically for Vanguard, it's a third core resource, and also the second free one. When you ride for the first time, you activate the Energy Generator crest from your ride deck, and immediately get 3 energy if you went second, which is also the second freebie you get for going second next to drawing an extra card. At the start of your turn, your crest will generate 3 energy for you, and also caps you off at 10. Funnily enough though, the comprehensive rules actually clarify that energy by default has no upper limit to how much you can have. It's just that the only main source of energy also limits it, meaning we just gotta fuck around with Forkalore Turbo if we can ever somehow ditch our energy generator. It also has the built-in ability to draw a card by paying 7 energy during your main phase, which is a great number for its cost. Cards that charge even 1 energy make the effect that much easier to access, pretty much letting you pay 7 after only 2 turns with your crest. And of course, drawing a card is always good. Drawing cards is the best thing you can do in Vanguard, and probably any card game for that matter. The energy token is also kinda neat. It being a token allows for some opportunities in customization, something I really value in, well, any game ever. And wouldn't you know it, this video is sponsored by MyMetalCards. They're a shop focusing on providing high-quality, beautiful metal tokens for Vanguard and Flesh and Blood, featuring energy crests and generators, nation cards, divine skill counters, and whatever these are for Flesh and Blood. I'd use them, they're pretty, because they feature art from different artists from across our communities, allowing you to game in style. And they even do custom printing. I drew this art of Lindalki and Thumbreano myself, and they were kind enough to include it for me. I am absolutely in love with the ones I have, and I'm excited to say that I can do a giveaway thanks to them. I have to limit to Canada and the US, but the winner will get a handful of 3 metal tokens just for subscribing and following me on Twitter. The link in the description will tell you everything you need to know on how you can win these beautiful metal tokens. Again, thank you so much to MyMetalCards for the sponsor. Energy allows for a shift in resources and their use in different decks. Just like any other resource, you gotta allocate it wisely across your deck, making sure that your cards that energy blast don't use more than you actually have. As just like with Counterblast and Soul, if your cards use it too much, you'll run out of it for when you really need it, and you'll lose much more easily because of that, which is why every resource is a valuable one that you gotta make the most of to maximize your deck and strategy. Some decks may be burdened with high costs that make you think carefully of how you spend your resources and on what. Basically, this deck really wants to use this card, but doing so makes it a bit less able to use this card. This dynamic, also seen with Damage and Soul, makes resources a limiter on how much you can do at once. As, again, they're all finite resources you gotta ration out across your deck. This is by no means a bad choice, of course. All games and decks within them should have a limit to how much you can sensibly do against the opponent, both for balancing and also to make sure that your choice-by-choice decisions matter. Kinda like a fighting game and using its resources like gauges or bursts. But basically, the game now has a third core resource it can spread around its cards. What it does with it is capitalize on the flow of resources you get each game, giving new options to fill in niches in your deck with energy-using cards. For example, Blackmire is focused on amassing soul, meaning it doesn't want to use that resource for soul blasting since it's already using it for Daddy Zero himself. But he still has damage to use for getting soul and then rounding out its kit with valuable energy cards like Zamoog and Tiskar. The Shiafel's main ability costs 3 energy, the same amount you get every turn, making its energy spoken for, but it still uses damage pretty normally, as it expects you to use it for field building cards or its own restander, which its countercharger easily accommodates. With these examples, maybe you get it now. Vanguard introduced energy to expand upon itself, and unlike Orders in V-Series, yeah, you might have forgotten that Orders came from this. Standard is readily making energy a worthwhile mechanic adding to its game, incorporating it into new decks and support to add further consideration and depth to your plays. Beyond that, I don't think there's much else to say. You could argue that the inclusion of energy pushes back the need for countercharging, but realistically, we still got expansions to damage's dynamics since Divine started, both in generic and in archetype options. If they added another resource, then I think that might be too much. But energy on its own has proven so far to be a great addition to the game in my eyes. Thanks so much for watching, and a huge shout out to MyMetalCards for allowing me to throw my first giveaway on the channel. Again, I do have to limit it to Canada and the US, but if you want to join, you can find the instructions in the link in the description below. All you gotta do is follow me on Twitter and subscribe to the channel on YouTube. And even if you don't win, you should totally check out their shop and snag a nice token for your deck. Maybe something classy like a Night Rose or Hari marker for your brand new Stride deck. Just an option.